Have you ever opened up a Linux terminal and just felt lost? Like you're staring into this complex, cryptic maze? Well, today we're going to turn that maze into a map. In this explainer, we're breaking down the Linux file system and turning it from something intimidating into something you can actually use. So let's jump right in. Okay, let's start with a really simple but super powerful idea. I want you to picture your entire Linux system as one giant, perfectly organized filing cabinet. Seriously, this one analogy is the key that unlocks everything else we're about to talk about. Every single file, every program, every little setting, it all has its own specific drawer and folder. And that filing cabinet, the box that holds absolutely everything, it has a name. It's called the root directory. And it's represented by just a single /. That's it. Whenever you see that slash, you know you're looking at the very, very top level of the entire system. It's ground zero for our entire journey. Now, to really get Linux, you have to wrap your head around its core philosophy. Everything is a file. A text document? Yep, that's a file. A picture? That's a file too. And here's the kicker. Even the directories, what you'd call folders, are just special kinds of files that happen to hold other files. This consistency is exactly what makes the system so elegant and powerful. So now that we have that foundation, let's go ahead and open up this digital filing cabinet and start looking at how it's all organized inside. You might be wondering, why isn't this filing cabinet just a total mess? Well, it's because of this, the File System Hierarchy Standard, or FHS. Think of it as the official blueprint for our cabinet. It lays out the rules saying essential programs always go in this drawer, your personal documents go in another, and system settings go over here. This standard is what makes any Linux system, no matter which one you're on, feel familiar and predictable. All right, we have our blueprint. Now it's time to take a quick tour of the main drawers in our cabinet. Let's start mapping out the most important places you'll need to know. So here are the main landmarks on our map. First up, you've got /bin. That's where essential command programs live. Then there's /etc, which holds all the system-wide configuration files. Now, /home is a big one. That's your personal space, where you'll spend most of your time. /var is for variable data, things that are always changing, like system logs. /root is the special home for the administrator. And /dev is where the system keeps a list of all connected devices, like your printers or USB drives. Let's zoom in on /home for a second, because it's so important. If you've multiple people using one computer, this is crucial. Inside /home, each person gets their very own private folder. These spaces are kept totally separate from each other. My stuff is in my folder, your stuff is in yours, and we can't accidentally mess with each other's files. It's a really simple but super effective security feature. Okay, here's a classic trip up for beginners, so listen close. Do not confuse the single // with the directory named root. They sound similar, but they're completely different. That single / is the root of the entire system, the whole filing cabinet. But the root directory is just the personal home folder for the administrator, also known as the root user. Two very different things. Okay, you've got the map. You know the layout of the land. Now what? Well, now you need the tools to actually move around and do things. So let's look at the essential commands for your expedition. These 3 commands right here, they're your absolute bread and butter. If you ever feel lost, just type pwd, print working directory, and it's like asking your GPS, where am I right now? To see what's in your current location, type ls to list the contents. And when you're ready to move, cd, change directory, is how you walk into a different room. Now, when you're telling the system where to go, you've got 2 main options. An absolute path is like giving the full street address, starting all the way from the root directory, that single /. A relative path, on the other hand, is just a shortcut. It's a set of directions based on where you are right now, so you don't have to spell out the whole thing from the very beginning. So you can navigate, but what about actually managing your stuff? Well, you use mkdir to make a new directory or folder. CP lets you copy things. MV is interesting. You can use it to either move a file to a new spot or just rename it. And finally, RM is how you remove files and directories. And I have to pause here for a really serious warning. The RM command is incredibly powerful, and it is permanent. There is no recycle bin, there's no undo button. When you use RM to remove something, it is gone forever. I mean it. Always, always double check what you are doing before you hit enter on this command. All right, you've totally mastered the basics of getting around and managing files. Now, let's get into some of the more advanced stuff, some really cool shortcuts and the safety nets that keep your whole system secure. So, Linux has two different ways to create shortcuts, and they're called links. On one hand, you have a hard link. This is basically a second name for the exact same file data. If you delete the original file name, the hard link still works perfectly because it's pointing to the data itself. But then you have a symbolic link, or soft link. It works differently. It points to the original file name. So if you delete that original file, the soft link breaks. The big advantage of soft links, though, is that they're way more flexible. They can point to directories and even across different hard drives. You ever wonder what happens if your computer crashes right in the middle of saving a file? This is where journaling comes to the rescue. Modern Linux file systems are journaling systems, which means they keep a log, a journal, of every change they're about to make before they actually do it. It is an incredible safety net for your data. So how does this magic work? Well, it's actually a pretty slick process. First, the system writes its intention. Hey, I'm about to save this file into the journal. Second, it goes and does the actual saving on the file system. And third, it marks that journal entry as complete. Now, if the power goes out between steps 1 and 2, no problem. When the computer reboots, it just checks the journal, sees that unfinished task, and simply replays it. This makes sure no data is ever left in some corrupted, half-written state. It's what makes the file system so incredibly robust. So let's do a quick recap of our expedition. We've learned that your Linux system is just one big logical filing cabinet that starts at the root, /. The FHS is the map that makes sure everything is predictable and easy to find. Commands like cd and ls are your essential tools for exploring. And finally, advanced features like links and journaling give you amazing shortcuts and rock-solid data protection. You know, when we started, you might have been looking at what seemed like an impossible maze. But now, you have the map, you have the tools, and you understand the powerful, logical structure that holds it all together. The Linux file system isn't a mystery anymore. It's a landscape of possibility. So the only real question left is, what are you going to build with it?